Okay, so the one that we can see, I think, is potentially the male, and it could well do a 360 once it gets to the top of the ball. No, they sometimes do that to get their bearings once they've fallen over. And there it goes. So that is the male. There is a female holding on to the other side of the ball that we can't see. And she's basically just being transported by the male. And I mean, oh, there she is. And it doesn't make the male's job any easier, rolling around ball with a massive speed bump on the one side, but that's how they do it in the dung beetle world. It'll be interesting to know how far they've rolled this ball from. I've been looking around to see where they may have harvested the dung with which they would have made this close to perfectly round ball, which is hard to believe such a small animal can create such a big round ball of dung. And on the external layer, they've actually caked it with sand to create almost a shell. And that keeps the dung inside relatively moist and fresh, so that when their larvae hatches, they've got a larder of food to feed on within that bolus of dung. So I think what's happening here is that the female's waiting for the male to transport her to the appropriate neighborhood. Thereafter they'll try and hide the ball as much as they can, even potentially excavate a little bit of the ground and bury the ball into the ground a little bit, and then leave their young, leave the egg, and carry on with their lives. And then when the egg hatches, like I say, it will have a larder of food to feed on, and it'll feed on all the dung within that capsule of sand, and then break its way out and start its life as a dung beetle. There we can see a little bit of the 360 action. Once they fall over, in order to get their bearings and find out which direction they need to head in, they often do a 360. It must be a highly frustrating business, this transport. Oh, lots of falling over, losing track of where you are. I mean, imagine being that low to the ground with all this vegetation around and all these undulations and small mountains that they have to conquer in order to get to where they want to go. I think it's worth us sticking around just for a few more seconds, because they're about to approach quite a considerable bank relative to that. It'll be interesting to see if they can both hold on once the ball of dung does start rolling into this little valley, you could say. Everything's relative, I guess. It would be a valley for them and just a small little dip or undulation in the ground for us. We can't see any of the tracks now on this section of road that we focused on, but we saw some tiny little hippo tracks heading up this road, so it'll be nice to find out where the owner of those little paws are, or hooves, or feet rather. It'll be really nice to see a little hippo. So we are in the area, we just behind Treehouse Dam here, so we will have a quick look shortly. It appears like the dung beetles may have called in for a tea break, or who knows, maybe this is the real estate that the female was hoping for, and now she's told told the man to jam on the brakes and start preparing to leave this bolus of dung here. What will happen next? There appears to be no movement from what was initially a little hive of activity around that bolus. There we've got a bit of movement. There we go. That looks like the male on top. There we go. And action. A tiny bit of it. So there does seem to be a bit more activity here. It's not uncommon to see two males or sometimes two females with one of the respective genders on one bolus of dung. So you'll have three of them with either the two females fighting over the male or the two males fighting over the female. But finding three of these little critters on one bolus of dung is always an interesting affair, because you have some pushing, some pulling. Nobody can decide which direction to go in. But these two appear to be having an uninterrupted honeymoon, I guess you could call it, to a degree. Okay, we're getting very close to this embankment, so stand by for a potential tumble. It's just going to make itself around this next tuft of grass. Crazy to think that these little creatures are using buffalo often and elephants, using their waste in order to create a pantry or larder of food for their next generation. So a very important animal in the ecosystem, and ensuring that all the dung does get utilized and broken back down into... Oh, there we go! That was what we were waiting for. I guess it was kind of a good move for the dung beetle, because it did roll in the direction that it was wanting to go. But now the problem that it faces is initially finding the ball of dung, which it's looking fairly lost now, possibly dazed and confused from the fall. But I'm sure it won't take long for him to find it again. It'll be interesting to know if the female's still holding on to the other side of the ball of dung, but we just can't see her. And once it does find it again, which I'm hoping is going to happen, the next problem it faces is getting it up the other side of the valley, because it's very steep. There's a lot of small tufts of grass which will obstruct its movements, but it was heading in the same direction that it rolled down, so let's see what it decides to do. It's thankfully managed to find it again. I'm guessing now he should climb up and do the 360, but it might prove me wrong. Hopefully it'll do this 360 to get its bearings. But no, this one's obviously got an improved GPS system, because he hasn't done it once. Whereas often they do the 360 to find out where they are. I think he's just having a word with the lady, seeing if she's okay on the other side there. There's an ant coming to investigate. It's really nice just to stop and have a look at the smaller things, listen to the birds, and take notes of the lives of these smaller creatures. They are all still busy and have plans and goals and requirements each day. Obviously it is difficult for us to follow them because of their size. We'll give it one or two more minutes and see what happens here. Seems to be slowing up a little bit. There goes the 360 eventually. They usually do it quite quickly and right at the top of the ball. There you can just see the female's leg poking out the other side, so she hasn't moved a muscle since the tumble, and she's just latched on, shouting orders, I think. Now this is when you do not want to be a dung beetle, because he has got literally a mountain to climb, and that strength relative to his size, I mean, just to get it that far, I'm impressed by. But he could be here for a while before he succeeds. We'll leave him to it. If we pass back this way, we'll be sure to have a look around. But I think that's enough dung beetle entertainment for now. And let's head out and see what else we can find. Like I say, we are very close to Treehouse Dam, so we'll have a quick look there, see if there's anything interesting around the dam, and then continue.